Hey everyone, Christie Tippett from Campus Rec here. For this week's A&P Crash Course, we are talking about our calves, which is the back side, so posterior side of our lower leg. So our calves are actually made up of two major muscles that we're going to discuss today, both being our gastrocnemius and our soleus. So our gastrocnemius is actually the larger of the two, and it is more superficial, meaning an outer layer of our calf muscles. So it goes skin, and then it's actually the gastrocnemius muscle. The gastrocnemius muscle has two heads, both a medial and lateral head, and it originates on the posterior aspect. So once again, the back side of the lateral and medial femoral condyle. So the very bottom part of that femur, that thigh bone, that big thigh bone where our quads and hamstrings are located, it is on both the lateral and medial side of those femoral condyles. Then once it has the two heads, it actually comes together and unites right about in the middle of your lower leg, and then it comes together and it actually joins into what we know as the Achilles tendon. And it ends at the calcaneus, which is a fancy word for your heel. Okay, the main action of the gastrocnemius is plantar flexion, and all that means is that it's the motion of when we go up on our tippy toes. So if we're imagining this is our ankle, this is our foot right here, the plantar flexion is just pushing those toes down towards the ground. So it's this motion right here. Okay. It also naturally stabilizes both the foot and ankle. And because the gastrocnemius originates on the femur and crosses on the posterior side of the knee joint, it actually assists with knee flexion as well. So remember, knee flexion means the decrease in that joint angle. So also, if we were to lift our heel up towards our bum, that's actually knee flexion. So your gastrocnemius, because it originates on the bottom side of that femur and crosses on the posterior side of the of the knee, it assists with knee flexion in addition to that plantar flexion of the ankle as well. Because your gastrocnemius is a two-joint muscle, just as we discussed, both our knee joint and ankle, it's prone to quite a bit of use, or what we call an overuse, an easily overactive muscle. And this can lead to problems or injury within this muscle, which can include, a gastrocnemius strain or tear, Achilles tendonitis or rupture, or even calf spasms. Your gastrocnemius is involved in fast movements such as running or jumping, but we'll get into more specific exercises for this muscle very shortly. But first, I want to dive into the soleus, and as mentioned, the soleus is kind of the another layer internal. So once again, we have our skin, and then we have our gastrocnemius, and then in another layer is our soleus muscle. And the soleus muscle originates on the posterior surface of the top of the tibia and fibula. So if you remember, your tibia and fibula are the bones that make up your lower leg. So once again, your soleus originates on the posterior surface, so the back side of both the top of the tibia and fibula, okay? And the insertion of your soleus is actually the exact same as your gastrocnemius. So once again, it inserts into the calcaneus, also known as your heel, through the Achilles tendon, okay? The main action of the soleus is also plantar flexion, so pointing that toe downward. Some exercises to work out our calves. include balance exercises. So whether you're standing on one foot, trying to gain balance, you'll see, a lot of individuals kind of like shift left and right because they don't have balance. Well, your calves actually help keep that stabilization of your ankle and foot and help us keep that balance. So if we were to stand on a cushion or a Bosu ball, single leg naturally will increase the kind of challenge of the exercise, but balance exercises are great to strengthen our calves. Another awesome exercise would be different variations of calf raises. So a lot of individuals might not realize how many variations there really are, but there are seated calf raises, standing calf raises, single leg seated calf raises, single leg standing calf raises, in addition to machine work. But what I would love to discuss this week are three-way calf raises. And the reason being, by shifting our feet, so three-way calf raises basically just mean our feet are facing straight forward, then we shift them out, and then maybe we shift them in, okay? That's a three-way calf raise. And by this little shift of our foot angle and knee angle, that actually allows us to kind of work different parts of our calves, right? Because now we know there's two muscles in there. So if we do one exercise all the time, it may primarily work our gastrocnemius versus our soleus. So it's really important to recognize that and implement different exercises that are working both muscles in our calves. So the three-way calf exercise, an awesome way to do this is by standing with your feet shoulder width apart. I always say in that athletic stance, meaning our abs are engaged and our joints are soft. So we never want to hyperextend our knees. We actually want to micro bend in them the entire time. So we're in that athletic stance, feet shoulder width apart, micro bend in our knees, and our toes are pointed forward. From there, all we're doing is standing on our tippy toes, right? So we're raising those heels off the ground, contracting and squeezing our calves, all right? The second variation would be us pointing our toes to a 45-degree angle. And because our toes are coming out, we actually want to ensure that our knees follow the exact same direction of our toes. So our toes are at 45 degrees, our knees are going to be at 45 degrees as well, keeping them once again nice and soft with that micro bend. And same motion, you're lifting those heels up off the ground and back down. And then last but not least, if we did it straight and we did them pointed outward, we're going to do them pointed inward as well. Once again, attempting to get to that 45 degree. However, keeping in mind that that knee has to follow the same direction as our toes. So keeping it soft, whatever's comfortable. Once again, raising those heels up. You do have a little bit more variety for this. So whether you are doing full range of motion, pulsing, or doing an isometric calf hold, so holding those heels up in this position, there are, like I said, those are the few different options that you can work and different ways to implement this into your exercise program. Another way to kind of increase resistance or challenge would be to create a deficit, meaning standing on a curb or a stair, or if you're in a gym, you can even lay down a 45-pound plate. And all you would do, you would put your toes on the curb, step, or plate, allow your heels to sink down to the ground, creating that deficit that you wouldn't otherwise get if you were flat on the ground or didn't have any of these objects. And then same thing, you're just going to go up on those toes and back down. So that increases the range of motion, in turn increasing the challenge as well. As usual, we go through a calf stretch, and a very common calf stretch is a standing calf stretch against the wall. So all you would do is press one of the ball of your foot, more anterior part of your foot, the ball of your foot up against a wall, and then all you would do is take that opposite foot, step it back, and then lean forward towards the wall, and you'll feel this stretch actually in both calves, so depending on what one you want to work. So you'll feel the stretch obviously in the one against the wall because you're creating this range of motion, or you'll feel it in the backside depending on how far you step that opposite foot back. So that is a common stretch for our calf muscles. That is all I have for today. Once again, thank you so much for joining me to talk about our gastrocnemius and soleus muscles today. I hope you enjoyed, and we recognize how important it is to both strengthen and stretch this muscle group, as again, they do tend to be a little bit overactive. So thank you. I will see you next week for our next session.